Hi,
Hello,
everyone. Welcome to live vibe. Oh my gosh, love vibe chats. And I'm so excited to share with you an amazing woman today. My name is Macy. I am the founder of the Love Advantage and Love Vibe TV. And this is now Love Vibe Chats, where we get to do things live and I get to bring you really special people that I've met in my life that have been really influential on my path that I know will be inspiring to you. And that's what I'm about. I'm about bringing love into the world. And I just want to introduce to you Anumani. And let me just read her bio because it is really amazing. So Eileen Anumani Santos is an international best-selling author of Unmasking Your Soul, a modern-day shaman, a speaker, a coach whose mission is to heal and awaken the hearts and minds of those seeking to live more authentic and soul-driven lives. Anumani spent most of her life in corporate world, but in 2003, all that changed. And through a mystical dream, she awakened to the calling of her soul that launched her on a spiritual journey of self-discovery and unmasking her soul. Now she works with clients to help them liberate their power, purpose, and voice so that they can show up and be seen in the world as who they were born to be. I love that. So thank you so much for saying yes to this and joining the Love Advantage community.
it's an honor to be here, Macy. I love your work and I love collaborating with you, and I'm excited to be able to share some of my experience with your community.
Yeah, I'll have to say, like last night, I was thinking about it and I was really excited about what will come from this. And I just reflected on my 20s and this whole idea of unmasking your soul just reminds me of a question I had over and over again, which is, what is my soul purpose? And I remember sitting on the porch at my parents' house when I would come back to visit them and thinking, what is my purpose, over and over again? And I really wished I had met you then. And still, you know, I was also in corporate world for a long time, and that question would come up over and over again. And then even now, where I feel like I am really aligned with my soul's purpose, there's a deeper level that we can go to. And I know the work that I've done with you has really helped me experience the vastness and the depth of what that means.
Yeah, and unmasking your soul really is about returning back to who you really are. It's like when we come into this body, we get amnesia and we forget who we really are. And so the journey of unmasking is really starting to peel back the onion, because it's we're like that. We're like an onion, to really discover and remember that inside we really are just a bundle of love, which is what you teach about love, and that connecting with your soulmate and love and relationship. And unmasking your soul really requires you to get that about yourself, to really connect with that part of you.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I love how you describe it because I think the key piece here is to understand that it's not something that we're trying to get outside of us. Like it's always there. And it's those layers that can feel like it's hidden. So I really love that. And that is what I teach because I think there's so many times we can feel like we have to totally change ourselves and really it's all right there. And I would love to hear about your journey. Like, How did you get here?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I remember as a little girl, I would have these amazing dreams where it felt like I was leaving my body and flying over the trees, and I could see the houses beneath me, and I just felt so free. And I would be giggling and having so much fun, and I could feel that I was surrounded by these amazing beings and angels, and then they would just gently put me back into my bed. But then there were things that happened to me as a little girl. I was sexually abused. And it's like I started to shut down that part of me that was so connected spiritually as a little girl. I remember I loved art, and all the things that I loved, I actually just gave them up. I loved music, and so I ended up becoming an electrical engineer, and then went into the corporate world, working in consulting for many years, and then ended up in a job heading up a marketing department in Delaware for a small student lending company. And it was that same year where all this havoc was happening in my life. I was having issues in my marriage. Um, I had been working for a small consulting firm in New York City, and they decided to shut down. So I had to find a new job. All this was happening at the same time. And October of that year of 2003, I had this dream, the one that you mentioned in my bio. It was so powerful. And right before that, I had been experiencing fainting spells, and I had gone to the doctors and they couldn't find anything. And it was really my body trying to get my attention. And I wasn't paying attention. I was a workaholic. I was working very long hours. I would get sick a lot. I wasn't listening to my body. But that dream instantaneously just woke me up. And in the dream, I'm in an elevator with three other women. And you know how in the movies, the cable breaks loose and it just starts shooting down. It makes a hole through the side of the building. And we were skidding over this muddy water, which really represented my emotions at the time, just the turmoil and the chaos that I was feeling inside. The part that I had been unwilling to look at was getting my attention. And on the left side of the river was a woman. She was dressed all in white, and to me, she was my guardian angel. And she pulled me out of the elevator. There were other things that happened, like I lost my wedding ring, which was symbolic of what was to come. But it was the voice that I heard at the end of the dream. And he said, "My child, I have a mission for you. You're not going to understand what it is, but be patient, because in time it will all be revealed." And I joke about it because to me, it was God's voice. Others may call it higher power, creator, whatever, that bigger energy that's beyond our bodies was speaking to me, trying to get my attention. And I immediately woke up from that dream knowing that I needed to change my life. And the first thing I needed to do was to leave my unhealthy marriage. And that's what I did. And it took me some time to do that. But it was the beginning of my unmasking, of listening to that voice and taking action, right? And it doesn't have to be a dream that you have. It could be anything. Somebody walks up to you on the street and says something, and you know that they're speaking to you.
Yes.
And I'm sure you've had experiences like that.
I think that's important to mention, because, there are so many ways that we get those divine messages and nudges, and, yours was pretty vivid. Yes. But they are all like something that we may actually be getting right now and not actually acknowledging. How do you do that? I mean, would you share with people like how they can access and recognize those divine messages?
Sure. Like anything, we have to practice listening and trusting. And the more you practice that, the more when something comes, you're going to recognize it. So part of it with anything is setting an intention that you're going to be open to listening and receiving. And then you have to pay attention, right? So you might be in a cafe, you might be in a Starbucks, and maybe there's something that's been bothering you that you're trying to get clarity on. And maybe a song comes on, right? You're sitting there at the cafe, and all of a sudden this song comes on, and the lyrics are the answer to your question, right? But many of us, and I include myself in that, because I still have to practice this, it's like we're numb to the world and we're not paying attention to all these signs that are always around us. And so the first thing is just saying, okay, I'm going to start paying attention. And the breath is one of the easiest ways to really connect with that part of you that I was talking about, that's bigger than this body. It's, you know, an energy of your spirit, whatever you want to call it, your spirit, your higher self, your soul. And that part of you is wanting to partner with you in a sacred partnership to help guide you. But we tend to ignore that too. And the way it speaks to us is through our intuition, right? The phone rings and you kind of know, like, oh, you know who's calling you. Or you get a gut feeling in your stomach, like, oh, like I really shouldn't do this. This isn't good for me, right? All those little tidbits we have to start paying attention to. I get a lot of signs through animals sometimes, so I pay attention to that, and through videos. And you know, I'll be watching a movie, and all of a sudden I'll go, oh my God, that was for me, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really just saying to yourself and setting the intention, like, okay, I'm going to start paying attention. And even something so small, I'll give you an example. So 2 days ago, I had gone to the Starbucks, and I normally park in another area, but I was by my guides, I was told to park in a certain area. And actually, I think that was the day you and I were talking. And I looked over at the right side of my car, and there were 2 rose petals, and one was in the shape of a heart. And I knew that it was my gift, right, of the divine saying to me, you are loved, being reminded that I am loved, that I'm always loved. And it's a reminder to all listening that you are loved and you are loved. Mm-hmm. And that when we pay attention, if I hadn't listened to that, I would have missed that beautiful gift of that rose petal that was shaped like a heart, which when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, it just confirmed for me how loved I am. And we always need to feel that way, right? And those are the little ways that the divine helps us know that we are loved.
Oh, I love it. It's so great. I think it's so true. And I love doing little experiments like that in my own life where I ask a question and then I say, show me the answer, and I'm willing to be surprised. So little things like billboards and, you know, license plates, however it comes, can be really exciting. And to really notice, I think one of the challenges is, you know, believing it, like believing in that kind of magic. So for you, when you got that amazing dream that inspired you to take steps, how did you know that, you know, what did you notice that showed up to kind of affirm that, wow, that really was a message I needed to listen to?
Well, I started to meet people that were much more aligned with the spirit, the soul, meditation, things that I do now. And I was really scared because even though this dream was extremely powerful, it shook me to my core. I woke up with a lot of strength and courage, and I knew I needed to do this, but my conditioning, right? I had been raised Catholic, and the first thing that popped into my mind was like, oh my God, divorce, you know, like what's my family going to think? And so I kept asking for confirmation from the spirit world, but I also started to get it from people around me who didn't know me. And I would have, you know, conversations. I remember being on an airplane. I was going to a conference. I was still, you know, in the corporate world. And I sat next to this gentleman and his daughter. And I normally, you know, wouldn't tell somebody what I was going through, but it just felt like I was supposed to. And we start talking, and I'm telling him that I'm going, you know, that I had just made a decision to get a divorce. And it turns out he was like the author of this amazing book. I think it's called something like Jesus Walked Among Us. And he said, I feel like I need to give you a copy of my book. And we talked and we chatted. And I remember I was crying and I was just feeling all this pain and I was scared. And I just randomly opened the book and I landed on chapter 4, which was about compassion. And I read that chapter, and it was for me to read. I needed to read it because there was a part of me that needed to understand that I needed to go through this grieving process. I needed to go through forgiveness. I needed to have compassion for what had happened in my relationship. Relationships are a two-way street, right? So we are all mirrors of each other. So even though it was extremely painful for me, it was painful for him as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we were mirroring in each other the parts of us that needed to be more loved, the parts of us that were carrying pain. So when I opened that book to compassion, I knew the message was, it's time for you to start your journey of compassion and forgiveness. And as I went through my journey, you know, 2003, 14 years ago, I have met some amazing people. And I have to say that I wouldn't have been able to get here without having special people in my life. You're one of those special people, right? But along the way, I was meeting people that got me, that weren't judging me, that loved me the way I was and were supporting me to step into the new energy I was being asked to step into. Even though I couldn't see where I was going, I still didn't know what that mission was about, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't learn what that was until like a year later when I was sitting in a meditation class and a woman who didn't know me came up to me and she said, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, "Well, I'm in marketing." And she goes, "Do you know you're supposed to be a healer?"
Wow.
And I just looked at her like, I didn't even know what that meant for me. I know what healer meant. And I loved helping people, but I didn't yet know how that was going to express through me, which was still part of what was yet to come for me on my journey. So it requires a lot of surrender, trust, and surrounding yourself with people who really love you, who can support you. Because as we step into, you know, these new levels of knowledge and understanding of who we really are, we need to be supported by people who are going to help lift us into that energy and who are not going to judge us and who are not going to try to hold us back from that which is our birthright, because it really is our birthright to step into who we really are.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love that. It's so amazing. And it is such a leap of faith and developing that trust and affirming what we want and continually following that kind of deeper pull is kind of scary sometimes, you know? And I think that that's so true for a lot of the women out there. I mean, I'd love to, please chat, by the way, please post any comments you have below around this. Like, where have you felt like that need to kind of surrender into something bigger in your life, or maybe there's some fear around it. So share your experience. We'd love to hear about it. And that brings me, when you were talking about the book, like getting that book from that person, that your book is a very special gift for people. And it could be that exact thing, like that exact miracle that is needed right now. So really, people listening to this, consider, these messages may be your divine answer right now. And we're going to do a little exercise at the end that I think will actually support that even more. But will you share a little more about your book, Unmasking Your Soul?
Sure. Yeah, the book is called Unmasking Your Soul, a transformational journey of truth, light, and healing. And the three words, truth, light, and healing, came to me in a dream years before I wrote the book. This is the whole part about trusting and kind of taking note of the messages you get. That's why journaling is so great, because I didn't know what that meant. But then when I started writing the book, it was 2015, April of 2015, I started writing the book. It took me 15 months to write. And it was certainly transformational for me. For anybody who's written a book, they know this, that as you write, you are healing and transforming as a person. And there were times when I would have to put the book to the side because I knew I wasn't ready to write that next chapter.
Mm-hmm.
But I had my cheerleading team, my family was so amazing. And I asked them ahead of time, will you guys cheer me on as I write these chapters? So every time I finished a chapter, I would text all of them and I would get back these woohoos, you're rocking, like keep going, and that kept me going because boy, there were times where the energy of what I was going through was so heavy, painful stuff, forgiveness and understanding who I was and letting go of conditioning of the way I was raised and limiting beliefs that I had about myself. I had a whole bunch of limiting beliefs about my voice, and yet my voice now is what I use to work on people. That's one of the reasons why I do call myself a modern day shaman. It's all through the voice. I sing, but it's in vibrations of the soul. And so the book takes you through these three stages of awakening, and they're really meant to, in each stage, you're just going deeper. So in the first stage, it's really about understanding who you are, why you're here, why were you created? Because we all have a purpose. And there are thousands of healers around the world, but each healer has their own unique way of how they express that through themselves in the only way that they can. And so that's the first part of the book. You go through 4 different chambers of the soul to get to that deeper part of why am I here? And to understand, some of the areas that might be blocking you, like love or worthiness and those and power. Those first 3 were so big for me. I really had to work hard in embracing those parts of me. And then the second stage is light. And that's really connecting more deeply with your soul. And I was saying that the soul speaks to us in many different ways. And one of the ways is through your intuition. So in the second stage of the journey, you're really learning to connect with your own wisdom, to connect with your, what I call the divine mind, which really transcends the ego parts. And how do we do that, right? How do we live in our lives without allowing those inner critics and those ego personalities to take us over? That's part of what we have to practice, right? Is living in this world as this spiritual being, but living in this human body. And so there's noise in the outside world, there's voices in the outside world, and then there's voices in our heads that come from conditioning that we've had as children, as adults. So that second part of the book is all about that, of transcending the ego and really connecting with your own wisdom and connecting with your own voice. Because we all have this connection to voice that is so powerful. And I think people don't realize how powerful their voice is, that when you connect deeply to that place within you, you can actually speak into being what you want in your life, right? But you got to get the stuff that's in the way of that out of the way, so that you are in alignment with that vibration that already lives within you. And then the third stage is really living your life from that place. It's called healing. And it's about you embodying who you are. And in that section, we get into divine devotion and your connection to your own spirit, to the spirit around you in whatever form your beliefs align with that. It's about your passions, right? Your deepest passions, because your deepest passions always are going to be a sign of your purpose. Because your purpose work lifts you up. So if you're doing something that doesn't lift you, then it's probably not your purpose work. Your purpose work energizes you. It renews you. When you do it, you just feel so freaking alive, right? You feel the energy. It just lifts you. And that's how I feel when I'm working with people and doing what I love to do. That's a sign that you're doing your purpose work. So that last chapter is about embodying all of that, so you can really show up in the world as who you were born to be, right? With no apologies, like, this is me, right? And you're still, the important thing I want to say here is you're living your life from a place of love and divinity, and not letting the ego, right, being the one that's facing the world. And although your ego is always there, the more you practice being in those places of divinity, the easier it gets for you to stay there longer and longer. And when you do fall off, it's very easy for you to come back to center with just one breath, right? You practice coming back to that place where you know that everything is already perfect.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I see so many parallels to finding love. I mean, the first piece that you said about your voice, to me, is so huge in how your story demonstrated that oftentimes we think the thing that is, not, you were kind of rejecting your voice, like whatever we're kind of rejecting or that is stuck in the shadow ends up being the gift. In my world, it's can end up being the most attractive thing about a person. And it's what makes them able to attract the person that really gets them. And I just love, how you share about really noticing your passions too, because there's so much that I think we deny ourselves in that space. And I know for me, even now, even doing work that I really am passionate about, there's still aspects of my life that I have to remember that I can have those things. I can make space for, more pleasure in my life, and how that energy is just so different. And so I can't wait to dive into the book and do it for myself even more. I love it. So will you tell me about, what do you think? Because the one thing that I find that is a really kind of painful piece is that worthiness piece. Like, what advice would you give to this audience around connecting to your worthiness?
So I think a lot of us hold feelings of unworthiness. And I have done lots of different things, part of it through people that have worked on me to help me heal some of the trauma that I was carrying. But also, I like to do a lot of mirror work. And Louise Hay, who I think many people know, who recently passed, she was one of the ones that I always saw doing mirror work, and it was hilarious because she would actually carry a little mirror in her bra, and she would be sitting on stage, and she would bring it out, and she'd start doing affirmations. So one of the things that really helps, not just with worthiness, but in loving yourself, is beginning to do mirror work. And can you look at yourself in the mirror and say, I love you?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a sign of the places that you need to heal. And you just start practicing it, right? So I started doing that. I would get in front of the mirror, and I still do. And I would say, I love you, Anumani. And I would look. So one of the things you want to graduate to, at the beginning it may be hard, but eventually you'll get there, is that when you're looking in your eyes, you're trying to connect more deeply with that divine part of you, with that soul part of you. And you want to figure out where you feel that connection in your body. For me, it's my head. Whenever I feel energy rushing through my head, I know I'm divinely connected. For other people, they may feel it in their heart. They may feel it elsewhere in their body. But you want to practice looking into your eyes in the mirror, and until eventually you will get to that place where you are feeling that connection. Because the more you can connect with that part of you as you're saying, I love you, it's like you're imprinting it in your energy, in your body, in your field. And that's going to support you on your journey. And I used to say things like, I am enough, right? I am worthy of the life that I desire. It's my birthright. And I want people to really take that in, that it is your birthright. The divine wants you to be joyful and happy. It doesn't have to be where you give up your life to do this. The work, your purpose work is meant to be fun. It's meant for you to enjoy it. It's meant to include your human personality in that. And you need to really anchor in that it is your birthright and that you deserve the life that you want. And so practicing looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I love you, I am worthy, I am enough, and doing that, right? You might be in the car and you're repeating it. You're in the bathroom in the morning because you have to go to the bathroom. You can put little Post-it notes, whatever helps you to remember, right? I have Post-it notes in my bathroom. You can do it in the car, wherever you have the opportunity to keep repeating that, because this is what I was talking about before, the power of the spoken word. But the thing is, you need to believe what you're saying. Initially, you may not believe it because there may be some trauma that's in the way, some pain. But the more you repeat it, you're going to start shifting that energy. And eventually, you're actually going to believe it. And you're going to know because you're going to feel it in your body. But you don't have to believe it from the beginning. You just do it, because by taking action, you are showing the universe that you're serious about really shifting and stepping into who you really are. And the universe is going to show you support, because it's a friendly universe. It's a loving universe. And it will show you what other things you need to do to shift that unworthiness.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So that's a really great exercise. So get a mirror, look into your eyes, into the mirror, sense it in your body, like feel that connection to your divine self in your body, and then affirm your worthiness, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think that that's really a great takeaway for this as an action, so we can all do that right away. Well,
Yes.
maybe we can post those steps in the comments below too, because I think that that's really, really awesome. And the key there felt like that connection to the body, like really finding it within you
Yes.
and sensing it. And I love words. I love words, though. I love the word abracadabra because it means as you speak, you create.
Ah,
And I've always like thought that was so magical. And authors like Frances Scovel Shinn,
yes. I love
she
her stuff. Yeah.
she talks about words are wands,
Yeah. Florence.
and
Amazing.
it really is something that I work with my clients too on, and myself. Like, what do I want to affirm for myself? What am I putting out there? So great. Well, is there anything else that you want to share with this community that you feel like is really important before we do our special exercise?
No, I think we've talked a lot about what I wanted to say. I just want to remind people again. You'll if you work with me, you're always going to hear me say this, that you are loved and you are loved.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to say that again. You are loved and you are loved.
Yes, that's really good. No matter what we think, that is true.
Yes.
It's coming from a different place.
Yes.
So cool. So I know you have a surprise for us. So will you go ahead and introduce what we're going to do now?
Sure. So I'm just going to show up here on the screen. So these are my paintings. And this was one of the first gifts, by the way, that I surrendered to after I had that dream. I didn't know what I was painting back then, and then it kind of morphed into all of this. But they have universal soul messages, and I use them to do soul readings. They're one of the ways that I connect with people's soul, to let them know where their soul's trying to take them, and potentially where there may be some obstacles or energy that needs to be shifted for them to step into that. And so I wanted to do kind of a general soul reading for the audience today. And if you have a favorite number, I will then pick out some paintings.
So
So
I'll give you a number.
yeah, why don't you do
Okay, good. Okay, do we need to do anything to prepare as at all? Are we good? I'm just thinking the audience listening, like this is for you. I mean, this is literally a message for you. So really think about what you want insight on.
So
And
I'm just gonna ask the divine to share whatever is in the highest good for the audience that's watching. That's what we'll pick.
okay. Okay, so the number that came to me is 4.
Okay. So I'll pick 4 paintings and then I'm just gonna show them one at a time and I'll explain each one.
Ooh, this is exciting. I really feel supported.
So these are the 4 paintings and I'm just gonna hold them up one at a time so people can see. So this is the first one is Archangel Michael.
Mm.
And we were talking about how the ego gets in the way sometimes of us being able to take the steps that we need to take, because the ego's job is to try to keep us safe. And in trying to keep us safe, many times it'll say, oh, don't do that, or don't do that because look at the way it turned out last time. Because the ego only works from the past. It doesn't know that your present or future can be different. So Archangel Michael represents that transcending that ego, facing your inner fears, and not allowing those parts of you that are trying to hold you back from stepping in more deeply. So that requires you to do some work around limiting beliefs. And what are those fears, right, that you're holding inside of you? This might be a good opportunity for those who are watching, right, if they have their journal, to kind of write down if there's one thing you're trying to achieve right now that maybe you're scared, or something you've wanted to do and you haven't been able to take steps forward, to write down the question, you know, what is it that I'm afraid of, right? And you can call in the energy of Archangel Michael to help you start to overcome those fears so you can take the actions that you need to take. And then the second card here is called Amazing Grace, and that's actually my hand coming out of the water.
Oh.
It was a time when I was going through a big transformation in my life. And part of what happens as we start to step in more deeply into who we are is that we have to grieve the old parts of us, because it's like we're at these big choice points in our life and there's big transformation happening. So this painting is about big transformation and about grieving the parts of you that need to be let go so you can step into the new energy. And I'll give you an example. For me, there was a part of me that saw myself as this business executive woman, and there was a part of my ego that was attached to that. And I had to let that go, that that's not really who I was. That's kind of the energy of this painting. It's about surrendering to the next part of your life that's going to take you to a better place where you are able to step in more authentically. But part of that requires you to grieve some of that, to let some of the emotions out around that, and to surrender to whatever comes, even if you don't know what the outcome's going to be. So part of it is having faith, right, that it's all going to work out. And then the third one is called the Master Builder. So once you're able to overcome some of those limiting beliefs and you're able to grieve and surrender to what's coming next, this painting is saying that now you begin to align more deeply with your soul's purpose, right? And this painting has a lot of energy of bringing in that energy of alignment, of your divine purpose, of manifestation, you know, the things that you want to manifest in your life. So it's like you're working on limiting beliefs. You're doing, this is a little process, right? Your soul is taking you through. You're grieving those old parts of you. You're letting them go. And now you step into this, which is more of who you really are. And this painting has energy when you start to discover more gifts, which is one of my, you know, specialties, which I didn't mention is, you know, I work with people to help them discover more of who they are, connect more deeply with their soul, then remove what's in the way, and then help you awaken your gifts. And I know that if you're listening to this, then you're probably a transformational leader, a messenger, or a healer. And part of the gift of this painting is stepping into that, of starting to understand more of how you bring your gifts to the world. And then the last painting is a portrait of Jesus. And I actually painted this for my mom. And this is about the Christ consciousness. And if you think about this in just simple terms, it's about purity of heart. That one of the things that Jesus did so well was the purity of heart, was the compassion, was the love, but also the spoken word, right? He had the ability that when he spoke, things would happen. So the energy of this painting is about that. It's about stepping into that energy of purity of love, which really, there's nothing that can beat love. I always hear in my meditations, love always wins, because it's true. Love is a vibration that just transmutes everything else. And fear cannot exist when love is present. It just can't.
Yeah.
So if you live in this energy of purity of love, and you know, really work on aligning with who you are, what this painting is saying is that then what you speak and what you do from that place of love is going to happen for you, right? It's gonna, the universe is going to show you, okay, you're stepping in to do this, you're doing it from that place of love, so now I'm going to support you and help you get all of that done, and the people that need to help you are going to show up, and all the things that need to happen will help you show up. So in this reading, you know, the Christ consciousness really is kind of the culminating factor of how you then embody who you really are, which was the last stage of my book that I talked about. Actually, the divine Christ consciousness is the last chapter in my book, and it's interesting that we got this painting. So that's kind of the journey for whoever was listening, of moving from, you know, the ego and overcoming your inner fears and letting go of the old stuff so you can step into a more authentic you, but doing it from that place of loving purity of heart, where you show up in the world knowing who you are and standing in your divine power, in that beautiful, magnificent being that you're meant to be, and allowing love to be your guiding force in the world. Because when we can do that with each other and see the divinity in each other, that's one of the things I love about the word namaste, which means, you know, I see the light in you. Because really, if we could all do that, just see the light in each other and see the love in each other, this would be a very different world. And so we can practice that, right? We can, if we show up in the world practicing that loving part that we are contributing to shifting what's happening in the world.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I totally believe that. I feel that was such a beautiful reading. That was so amazing. And I just really felt that journey, and it makes so much sense, you know, how we have to even grieve the things that we're kind of moving away from, and then stepping into more, and then the energy that supports that. It's so perfect. That was so cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So you are the gift that many people out there need right now. So will you go ahead and share with people how they can connect with you and experience your work?
Absolutely. So my website is www.anumanispeaks.com. And so that's kind of the main place where people can find me. But today I have a special offer for your community. And we're going to put the URL, I think, in the chat, and
Yes,
and show up underneath the video, I believe. So the URL for that is bitly.com/unmasking_special offer. And what I'm offering is a 30-minute Unmasking Your Soul session, where we would actually go a little bit more. You'd get your own soul reading, right? Like I just did with these paintings, to help you connect more with where your soul is wanting to take you, what might be in the way of that. We'll talk about your vision for your life and what you want to create. And we'll talk about what might be in the way of you creating that. Maybe you've already experienced some hardships that you really want to overcome. And so we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about some next steps for you that'll help you step into more of who you really are, and things that you can do right away to start to overcome whatever is in the way of you being able to step into your purpose, to create the life that you want, to attract your soulmate, right? Whatever it is that you want to create in your life at this moment that maybe has been challenging for you, we'll talk about all that, and I'll give you some next steps, and I'll use my own intuition. And usually there's divine transmissions that come through me as we're talking. So all of that will be part of that 30-minute session. It's $47 for your community. I normally charge $120 for that. And I'm happy to help people move forward on their journey. That makes my heart sing. So once they go to the landing page, there's a couple places where you can click to schedule your appointment and pay for the session. And then, you know, if you have questions, you can email us.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm telling you, I have experienced your work, and it really is profound. And even just this reading today, I got so much out of it. So thank you so much. And for everyone out there, thank you for listening, and just stay tuned for more Love Vibe chats in the future. And I will leave you with this, which is: how you love your life is your love life. So bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
See you later.